Today is January 27th. It's International Holocaust Remembrance Day, a day that has been determined worldwide to commemorate the almost 18 million people who were affected or who were lost in some way during the years 1933 to 1945 because of Adolf Hitler's final solution. 20 or more camps were established throughout Central Europe, in Poland, in Hungary, and other places that won't be claimed as having had camps, such as transit camps, prisoner of war camps, political dissident camps, alternative lifestyle camps, women's camps, men camps, work camps, and extermination camps, all of which later came to be referred to as death camps. 18 million. In IB Theater, we were talking about why you study the Holocaust. And as we looked around the room and talked about the list of Adolf Hitler's undesirables, which is lengthy, we realized that if this would have been 75 years ago, nobody in the class, no one, including their teacher, would have been spared. We would have been taken away, and we would have been lost, and would have been one of those 18 million souls. So at that particular point, we realized that we knew what our objective was. We knew how to answer the question, why do you study the Holocaust? We took material from Can You Hear Them Crying, from Who Will Carry the Word, Remember My Name, and No Fading Star, plus put together some monologues from Night by Elie Wiesel. And together we came up with the answer to why you study the Holocaust. Because it happened, and because no one should ever forget.
What's happened?
They're here, in Marseille.
But this is the free zone. This is why we came here. The French and German governments made a pact.
A devil's pact. Stay away from the window, Pauline.
Where's Rachel?
Maman?
Rachel!
Maman, I forgot the bread. I forgot the bread.
Leon, some hot water and a clean rag, quickly. Where were you?
Outside the cinema.
That's nowhere near the bakery.
Maman, I just wanted to see what was playing, but there was a giant sign that said no Jews allowed. Maman, it wasn't there yesterday.
Who was it? Who beat you up like this?
Some boys. A gang.
If you'd not be so headstrong and do what you're told. The cinema.
Did you recognize any of them?
Some were from my school.
Your new school?
Papa, they had Nazi armbands. Brand new armbands. Except one. They even had a flag.
The Nazis do a thorough job.
He started hitting me, and one of them yelled, "Forget it, she's just a kid."
Why didn't you run?
I did, but they started chasing me. They said they will get rid of your kind.
Rachel, are you hurt? Is anything broken?
Maman, it wasn't the sticks. They were laughing at me.
Leon, she's not going back to that school.
No. No, she's not.
But I didn't cry, no matter how hard they hit me.
You can cry all you want now.
How did you get home?
There was a gunshot. One of the boys whispered to me to run. But Mama and I forgot the bread.
Never mind about the bread. Tonight we'll eat less.
Papa, why do they hate us so much? Why?
Because we are a little different. Because it's easy.
Easy?
Easier to blame us than to try and solve the problem. That's our history, isn't it?
Papa, I was scared. Awfully scared. But you know what? I bit one and he screamed!
Next thing you know, you'll be a French spy.
How can you laugh at a time like this?
There are times, Pauline, when you can either laugh or cry. Leon Simon chooses to laugh. My one and only daughter saved by the gunfire of the Nazi invasion. But just before that happened, she bit the enemy, and he howled like a baby. It's a story for her grandchildren.
Papa, you make things seem all right. You make me laugh. You always do.
It comes with the job of being Papa. And right now, that's the only job I have. The only job I have worth keeping.
This is Theresienstadt, as the Gestapo renamed it. It is a ghetto in northern Czechoslovakia. Originally, it was erected by Emperor Joseph II in 1780, and this stone-encircled garrison was called Terezin, after his mother, Empress Maria Theresa. Ironically, this fortress town, at the foot of a mountain and in the fork of two rivers, was built as a strategic buffer against German invasion. In 1939, that protection failed, and German invasion of Czechoslovakia began. From 1941 to 1945, under the order of Adolf Eichmann, this dark walled city became a transit camp for 140,000 Jews. 15,000 of them were children. This is their story.
The 8 days of Passover. The synagogues were no longer open. Germans gathered, Jewish citizens gathered in private homes. No need to provoke the Germans. Almost every rabbi's home became a house of prayer. We drank, we ate, we sang. The Bible requires us to celebrate the 8 days, but none of us were really into it. On the 7th day of Passover, the curtain finally rose. They arrested the leaders of the Jewish community. From that moment on, the race toward death began. Edicts were being issued daily. All Jews were required to wear the Jewish star. Jews were not allowed to leave their households. Then came the ghettos.
The Nazis unexpectedly found themselves with a rather awkward situation. What to do with a certain special category of Jews? There were the World War I veterans who fought valiantly, side by side with the Aryan Germans, to defend the fatherland. There were the high-profile musicians, actors, writers, and spiritual leaders who would surely be missed if they suddenly disappeared. Hitler could not risk public scrutiny. The answer was Theresienstadt. In the words of Heinrich Himmler, make Terezin a model ghetto. Exhibit it as a town inhabited by Jews, one in which every manner of work is to be done. A model ghetto, a town built for 8,000 residents, at times housed more than 60,000 deprived, starving, and sick human beings.
Terrorism. A bit of filth on soiled walls, and all around barbed wire.
And 30,000 souls who sleep.
Souls who wake.
And souls who see.
Their own blood spilled.
I was a child once, 3 years before. That youth longing for different worlds. I'm no longer a child. I have learned hatred. Now, I am already an adult, for I have known fear.
Bloody words and dead days then, that's quite different from boogeymen.
Welcome to Terezin.
Welcome to Birkenau. Welcome to Buchenwald.
Welcome to Bergen-Belsen.
Welcome to Treblinka.
Welcome to Sobibor.
Welcome to Auschwitz. Men to the left, women to the right. 8 words spoken quietly, indifferently, without emotion. 8 simple, short words. Yet that was the moment when I left my mother. There was no time to think, and I already felt my father's hand pressed against mine. We were alone. In a fraction of a second, I could see my mother, my sisters move to the right. Zipporah was holding my mother's hand. I saw them walking farther and farther away. My mother was stroking my sister's blonde hair, as if to protect her. And I walked on with my father, with the men. I didn't know that this was the moment in time that I'd be leaving my mother and sisters forever.
only sleep. That I'll awake and return to childhood. That childhood, sweet like a briar rose, like a bell which awakens from a slumber. Like a mother who cares for an ailing child, loves him with an aching woman's love. How terrible is youth which still lives with enemies for gallows ropes. How horrible for those children on your lap to say, this one for the good, and this one for the vicious.
There, far away where childhood sweetly lies, on a pathway among the trees. There, within that home that was once by contentment, there, somewhere in a little garden and in its flowers, is where my mother gave birth to me onto the earth, only for me to cry. In the blaze of a candle I sleep, and once perhaps I will understand that I was such a tiny creature, just so small, like this poem.
These 30,000 souls asleep.
There in the forest awaken.
Open an eye, and because of what they see, they
fall asleep again.
The camp looked as though it had been through an epidemic, empty and dead. Only a few well-dressed inmates were wandering between the blocks. Of course, we first had to pass through the showers. The head of the camp joined us there. He was a stocky man with big shoulders, the neck of a bull, thick lips, and curly hair. He gave an impression of kindness. From time to time, a smile would linger in his gray blue eyes. Our convoy included a few 10 and 12-year-olds. He took fondly to them and requested to have food brought to them. I guess they're not all bad.
With extreme overcrowding and poor sanitation, disease was rampant. The very old and very young were hit the hardest by a deadly typhus epidemic. By the time the camp was liberated in May of 1945, the combination of disease, starvation, and despair had claimed the lives of 33,456 human beings inside the stone walls and barbed wire. Another 88,202 human beings were transported to their deaths to the extermination camp.
You're assuming then that the rumors are true?
I'm not a fool, Fritzy. I know that your loyalties do not lie with the party.
Well, there's that word again. Loyalty. You see, I don't recognize loyalty to any German party that assumes the right to brand and destroy people.
My God, you're naive. You're living in the Middle Ages as if you think that this war and the Third Reich will be halted by your scruples. You must stop and think what this will do to you as Mother Superior of the monastery. As rumors grow even now, Werner tells me
Werner's coming here. When?
Well, I'm trying to warn you. Last night, an order came from Colonel Lauber. He will be coming here himself to search and to destroy this monastery.
How do you know this?
I think Werner told me, knowing I would come here to tell you. He doesn't want the Colonel to find anything.
And tell me! What does he expect to find?
Fritzy, surely if there are old and sick people in the monastery, old and sick, someone will have enough fear to create evidence.
Who would believe the old and the sick confined to the infirmary?
They will be believed. It's too bad, but they will be believed. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand. No! No, I do not understand. I do not understand how my sister Liesel comes here to tell me the news of the town. Too bad, she says. Jews are wearing badges. Our friends are arrested and dragged off to resettlement camps. Our friends and neighbors. Too bad. Jews are no longer permitted to live in Baden, or anywhere else for that matter. Too bad.
Oh, Fritzy.
No, I do not understand this, and I do not understand you, my little sister. Do you understand?
Fritzy, just...
No! No, you listen to me. I do not live in the Middle Ages, and I know what goes on in the town. And I know the people I care and trust
They do not trust you. They will not. And as Klaus says, give you the time of day. And I know what that means. It means that you are no longer part of us. It means that you submit!
They all submit. You don't hear of any mass uprisings, do you?
But you believe! You cooperate, and there's the difference! Not much, perhaps, but a difference.
So much is expected of Warner, Fritzy. His position is important. But, Fritzy, lately we've been watched, and I'm afraid
to speak up or do anything.
Anything seems disloyal.
So I see. I'm an embarrassment to you. Well, you have your fears. You have your fears, Liesel. And I weep for them. But I have them too.
Oh, what do you know of fear?
You think I do not know fear? You're wrong. I am afraid because every day I take my life into my hands, Liesel, freely, because I am afraid not to. I'm afraid of what I would become if I were not to care enough or to love enough or to risk.
So the rumors are true.
They are only rumors, and I will not allow myself to fear them.
Knowing what will happen to you and to the monastery.
Nothing can happen to me that I do not choose. As for the monastery, it is the house of God. Its doors will shut for no one.
It's impossible to explain this to you, Fritzy.
No. No, you've explained yourself quite well. It used to be so easy. To make things well. To make you well. I wish I could help.
So do I. So do I.
Mama, I forgot my sweater.
Oh, we cannot go back. They will see us. Take my coat.
But Mama, you'll get cold.
No, it's fine. I have my sweater, see? Now we must hurry. Hurry!
Ross, up in!
I found her sweater today. It was in the pile of clothes. We had to sort. I knew it was hers. It smelled like her. When I touched it, I knew it right away. It was soft and warm, like her. I thought about keeping it so I can give it back to her when I saw her again. But the others warned me that I might get punished if they found it. So I left it there on the pile. I held it for a long time to remember how she looks, how she feels, how she touched. Poor Mama. She must be cold without her sweater.
Beyond the wall, above the sky, a life, perhaps to die. A train at night, then gone. No trace, human cargo, each tiny face.
An icy wind was blowing, but we marched without faltering. The SS made us increase our pace. Faster, you tramps, you flea-ridden dogs. Faster, you filthy dogs. We were no longer marching. We were running. The SS were running as well, weapons in hand. They looked as if they were chasing us. From time to time, a shot exploded in the darkness. They had orders to shoot anyone who could not sustain the pace or broke rank. Their fingers on the triggers, they didn't deprive themselves of that pleasure. If one of us stopped for a second, a quick shot removed the filthy dog.
The word transport sent a wave of fear throughout Theresienstadt each time it was uttered. The the word meant that more people were coming in, or going out. But either way, the word meant death. In the summer of 1943, 1,200 Jewish children were brought into the camp by transport. It was learned later that they were from the Białystok Ghetto in Poland. They were the remnants of an uprising against the Nazis, which left their ghetto burned to the ground. The children were covered with dirt and crawling with lice. Once inside the walls, they were isolated from the rest of the population, along with 53 doctors and nurses chosen from amongst the residents to care for them. 6 weeks later, in the middle of the night, all 1,200 children, and of the 53 doctors and nurses, were loaded like cattle into railroad cars and transported to their deaths at Auschwitz.
I kept repeating to myself, don't think, don't stop, run. Near me, men were falling in the snow. Gunshots. I shivered with every step I took. Just a few more meters, and it will all be over. I'll fall. A red flame, a shot, death. The idea of ceasing to be fascinated me. To no longer feel the excruciating pain in my foot. To no longer feel fatigue or cold. Nothing. To break rank. To slide off to the side of the road. My father. I had no right to die. What would he do without me? I was his sole support. One more hour of marching, and finally, ordered a halt.
Incredibly, amid the squalor and suffering, culture thrived at Theresienstadt. There were 60,000 books in the library. The population included Jewish composers, scholars, singers, diplomats, actors, and engineers, artists, the cream of the crop of European intellectuals. One such person, a painter by the name of Friedel Dicker Brandeis, gave the children art lessons. They eagerly, quietly awaited each of her visits. Small, fragile, and highly sophisticated, Mrs. Dicker Brandeis managed to make life bearable for countless children by giving them an outlet for their tortured inner worlds. In all, about 5,000 drawings and collages were created. A suitcase full survived the war. There were also classes in creative writing and poetry contests.
From the box?
The old house by front of us. Abandoned here. The old house stands quiet and asleep. The old house that once was lovely, standing there before. It was quite lovely. Now it stands alone, quietly rotting. Such a wasted house, and wasted hours.
Very good, Santa. You're becoming quite the poet.
Oh, I have another one, teacher.
All right, but this will be the last one for you today.
The garden by front of us. A small garden full of sweet-smelling roses. On a narrowing pathway, a little boy takes a stroll. A little boy, a darling. Like that flower bud blooming. Until the flower blooms, the little boy can still be.
Lovely. All right, children. It's time to finish up our work. Class is almost over.
Dusk. In flew dusk on the wings of evening. For whom do you greet me? Will you give my mouth a kiss for her? How I long for the place of my birth. Perhaps you alone, quiet dusk, have seen the tears shed in your laps from eyes that beg to see the shadow of the palm and olive trees in Israel. Perhaps you alone will understand Zion's son, who cries out for his tiny home beside the elm, and but for fear, he'd go back to it.
did you want with me, Claire?
Come over here.
No, talk. Here we think out loud.
I heard you wanted to commit suicide.
Yes? So what?
So you don't have the right to take your own life.
And why don't I have the right?
A fighter doesn't commit suicide.
Claire, please, forget your affirmations. They don't fit here.
I'm asking you why you decided to commit suicide.
You ask me? Ask those lying rigid in the snow. Ask their faces that are no longer faces, or their skin, which is a color no one's ever seen before. Don't you think that to become so scrawny, so trapped in what little remains of skin and flesh, you would have had to suffer to the limit? I don't want to suffer to that limit.
Can't you see further than yourself and your own death? Can't you see?
I see. I've never been more logical.
You don't want to fight?
I'm willing to fight, to try, but with a chance. Even a little one, however small, but with a chance. And I just don't see one. None of us will survive. And if it's to be death for death's sake, better right away before having suffered the suffering you see written on those in the snow. I prefer to die before becoming a corpse as ugly as those.
Will you listen to me?
You must wait until my eyes do not see what they see for my ears to listen to you.
My eyes see as well as yours. You're afraid. You're a coward.
Afraid to suffer? Yes. But a coward? Another word that's meaningless here.
I tell you again that you don't have the right to take your own life. You don't have the right because you're not alone. There are others. And above all, there are the little ones. The ones whom you taught to recite poetry. They admired you because you were grown up. They listened to you. They followed you. If you commit suicide, they may imitate you. Suppose that among them there is one who has the chance to come back, and because of you, she loses that chance. Even if you hold out for 15 days and become as tortured a cadaver as those, you have to stand it.
What good will it do? No one knows we're here. We're fighters off the battlefield. Useless.
There must be one who returns. You or another, each of us expects to die here. Would you want millions of people to have been destroyed here? For nothing.
It's exactly that. It's for nothing. To die here at the frontiers of the uninhabited world, it's already as if we were dead.
The world never knows anything about it, but there will be one who returns. One who will talk and one who will tell, because it's no longer who we are at stake. It's history. And people want to know their history. Each of us render an account for all of the others.
The others. Other people in other places. To us here, they have lost their reality.
Yes, the others. The people you know have lost their reality. But I speak of men. Of those who are now and those who will come after. To them you must render the account.
Why me? One more, one less. Choose someone else for your mission.
We arrived 200 women. 200 women who were thrown into this population of 15,000 women. 15,000 women who are never the same. We arrive by the hundreds each day. We die by the hundreds each day. These 15,000 women, how many will survive? 15,000 women more or less. 200 women more or less. You, me, it doesn't matter. None of us matter. It will only matter if there's one who returns.
It won't be me.
Suppose you hold out for 15 days, during which you help others to hold out. Even if you give up, then 15 days will have been gained. And then another will take your place, and then another, so that there is one who makes it all the way until the end.
Until the end? And when do you see that arriving?
I don't see it any more than you do. Even if there is no hope, even if it's all lost, we still have to try.
Dear Papa, Friedel Dicker Brandeis gave us another art lesson today. She's so lively, she almost makes us forget we're not home. I saw the full moon last night. It was our only light. We aren't allowed to use electricity here, and we don't have any more candles. This doesn't seem a very privileged place to me. Do you remember what you once said, Papa? That the full moon is special. And that if you look up into the full moon, you'll see the face of God? Well, it's true, Papa. I saw God's face last night. It was really late, and everyone else was asleep, but I woke up, and through the cracks, I saw him there, and the full moon was as big as anything. Do you remember what you also said, Papa? That no matter how far apart we are, if we both look up into the full moon, we'll see each other's faces? I saw yours, Papa. Did you see mine? I miss you, Papa, and I can't wait to come home soon. Tell my kitty hello. Love, your Elizabeth.
Communication with the outside world was strictly forbidden. In January of 1942, a group of people was arrested on the charge of smuggling out a letter. In all, 16 were executed for the crime. The Nazis were particularly concerned with the outside world's view of Theresienstadt. In June of 1944, the International Red Cross set a committee to inspect the camp. Great pains were taken to prepare for their arrival. Buildings were painted, street signs erected, and flowers planted, all to show the world the model ghetto. A propaganda film was even made shortly after the visit. A well-known German actor by the name of Kurt Gehren played a leading role in the film. A few days after, he was sent to Auschwitz, where he died in the concentration camp. Things quickly returned to normal.
After an hour of marching, we arrived in the middle of a field crossed by railroad tracks. This is where we would wait for the train's arrival. The hour went by. Our train stopped in an empty field. The abrupt halt had awakened a few of the sleepers on board. Outside, the SS walked by, shouting, "Throw out all the dead! Outside! All the dead!" The living were glad. They would have more room. Volunteers began the task. "Here's one, take him." Volunteers would begin to undress him and eagerly share their garments. Then, two gravediggers would grab them by the head and the feet and throw them to the wagon, like a sack of flour. I woke from my apathy only when they approached my father. I threw myself on his body. It was cold. "Father, Father, wake up! They're going to throw you from the train." The gravedigger had grabbed me by the neck. "No, no, he's not dead. Not yet." At last, my father half opened his eyes. They were foggy. He was breathing faintly. See? The two men went away. 20 corpses were thrown from our car. Then the train resumed its journey, leaving in its wake, in a snowy field in Poland, thousands of orphans without a tomb.
The Butterfly by Pavel Friedman. She was the last, truly the last, so full, so dazzling, so blazing yellow, like the sun's tears shattered against the white stone. Such a bright yellow. Whimsically, up to the sky, she went away surely to kiss the world goodbye. I've lived in here for 7 weeks now, trapped inside this ghetto. Yet I found loving here. The dandelions called to me, and the white branches in the chestnut court. I haven't since seen another butterfly. She then was the last. Butterflies don't live now in this ghetto.
I am the children.
I am the future of yesterday.
I am the 15,000, not yet 15.
I am the missing generation.
Do you know me?
Can you hear me crying?
On April 10th, there were still some 20,000 prisoners in the camp, among them a few hundred children. It was decided to execute all of us at once. Afterwards, they would blow up the camp. Around 10 o'clock, the guard set out and started to round the rest of us up into the middle of camp. And there were bursts of gunshots, grenades. We, the children, remained flat on the floor of the block. The battle did not last long. Around noon, everything was calm again. The SS had fled, the resistance had taken over. At 3 o'clock that day, the first American tank stood at the gates of Buchenwald. 3 days after the liberation of Buchenwald, I became very ill, some form of poisoning. I was transferred to a hospital and spent the next 3 weeks between life and death. And one day, when I was able to get up, I looked at myself in the mirror. I hadn't seen myself since the ghetto. Looking back at me, there was this shape contemplating me. The image of his face has still not left me.
In the not-so-distant future, there may be no one left to tell the story firsthand. When my children study the Holocaust, there may be no one left with the number tattooed on his or her arm. Shall we allow these children to die forgotten? Shall we allow the doctors, the writers, the painters, musicians, teachers, to fade into the books as mere numbers?
During the Holocaust, the Nazi Party and their allies murdered 11 million human beings.
5 million are unaccounted for.
6 million of them Jewish.
3 million of them Polish Catholics.
Additional 3 million Soviet Union war prisoners.
750,000 Serbians.
250,000 gypsies.
80,000 were political, religious, or the German resistance.
70,000 murdered for mental or physical disability.
12,000 homosexuals.
2,500 Jehovah's Witnesses.
1.1 million of those murdered were children.
Never shall I forget that night. The first night in the camp that turned my life into one long night, 7 times sealed. Never shall I forget the smoke. Never shall I forget the tiny faces that I saw transformed into smoke under a silent sky. Never shall I forget the flames that consumed my faith forever. Never shall I forget the nocturnal silence that for an eternity deprived me of my life. Never shall I forget the moments that murdered my God and my faith and turned my dreams to ashes. Never.
If you think it isn't real, if you think it never happened, you are wrong. If you think it could never happen again, go home, turn on the television, and watch the news. Pick up the newspaper and read. Then find a quiet place. Close your eyes and tell me, can you hear them crying?